The journey of true understanding is rarely easy. As Carl Jung profoundly observed, thinking is difficult, therefore, let the herd pronounce judgment. These weren't just abstract words, they were born from decades of his own profound experiences, a lifetime spent being dismissed, labeled an overthinker, by a psychological establishment that preferred the comfort of simple answers. While his contemporaries sought quick fixes, Jung dared to plunge into the profound depths of the human psyche. Where they saw obsession, he recognized an unyielding quest for truth. They insisted he thought too much, that his analytical mind was a flaw. Yet, Jung's relentless exploration unveiled a magnificent revelation. This very quality wasn't a weakness, but his most extraordinary gift. He realized something that can fundamentally shift your perspective, something that changes everything. You are not overthinking. You are profoundly seeking clarity in a world that often settles for the superficial, a world built on fleeting answers and convenient narratives. The very mind that others tell you to silence, to quiet down, is actually striving to unravel the most intricate, magnificent puzzles of your existence. Those persistent thoughts that sometimes steal your sleep, they are not your adversaries. They are the urgent whispers of your unconscious mind, an insistent demand that you unearth genuine meaning, unwavering purpose, and undeniable truth in your life. If you have ever been told you think too much, analyze too deeply, or question too often, understand this. This message isn't about learning to suppress that brilliant mind. It's about recognizing its immense power and learning to channel that beautiful, relentless energy into the formidable tool it was always destined to be. Because here's the often unspoken truth of what's at stake. You are living in a world that, quite frankly, profits from your mental silence. Society subtly encourages you to stop asking uncomfortable questions, to cease dissecting deeper meanings, to abandon the pursuit of truth beyond the polished surface. They desire you to merely consume, to comply, and to stop thinking with such fierce intensity. But your overthinking is not a mental disorder. It is a profound psychological rebellion. It is your mind valiantly rejecting the shallow explanations the world attempts to offer, demanding something infinitely deeper, something undeniably real, something profoundly meaningful. Perhaps right now, you might feel as though you're adrift, even drowning, in the relentless current of your own thoughts. The constant analysis, the endless questioning, the apparent inability to simply let things go as effortlessly as everyone else seems to do. You might have anticipated that healing would leave you surging with new energy, an unshakable drive. Instead, it feels as if someone has gently, yet definitively, switched off your internal engine, leaving you in a quiet, unfamiliar stillness. Jung brilliantly uncovered that integrating your shadow doesn't just mend old wounds. It fundamentally re-engineers the very architecture of motivation within your psyche. But what if I were to tell you that this relentless, probing mind isn't a glitch in your extraordinary system, but rather its most powerful feature? What if your mind's courageous refusal to accept simplistic answers is, in fact, a hallmark of psychological sophistication, not a sign of dysfunction? Jung discovered a profound truth. The individuals who think the deepest often experience a unique solitude, not because they are broken, but because they are operating on a frequency, a level of depth that most people are simply unequipped to access. You are not flawed for yearning to understand the profound meaning woven into your experiences. You are not unwell for needing to meticulously analyze your relationships, your ultimate purpose, the very essence of your existence. The true cost of silencing that extraordinary mind is not peace. It is a slow, insidious psychological death. When you cease seeking clarity, you inevitably cease growing. When you stop questioning, you effectively halt your own evolution. Thousands within our global community have echoed this exact, often bewildering experience. The moment of stark realization that your old motivation was nothing more than sophisticated anxiety, cleverly disguised in the glittering costume of productivity. Yet, Jung's most pivotal discovery lies in what this seemingly empty space truly reveals about your profound psychological development. Here's the staggering truth Jung unearthed. But when you learn to embrace and collaborate with your analytical nature, rather than fighting against it, something truly magnificent begins to unfold. That perceived overthinking transmutes into powerful insight. That meticulous analysis blossoms into profound wisdom. That relentless questioning becomes the illuminated path to an authentic, deeply lived existence. Allow me to share a pivotal moment, a time when Carl Jung himself nearly abandoned psychology forever. It wasn't because he was incorrect, but because his mind dared to venture too deeply for the conventional world around him. In the nascent years of the 20th century, psychology was enamored with straightforward explanations. Freud offered his groundbreaking, yet often reductionist, sexual theories. Behaviorists proposed their neat stimulus-response models. Everyone clamored for clean, concise answers that could be conveniently packaged and disseminated to the masses. But Jung, with an insatiable intellectual hunger, simply could not stop asking the questions that made everyone else profoundly uncomfortable. If your past was dominated by a relentless need to prove you weren't something, weak, stupid, worthless, you were operating from this powerful force Jung called projection. When shadow work integrates these rejected qualities, the urgent need to prove anything simply evaporates. But with that freedom, you also release the very driving force that dictated your life. Modern neuroscience, in a beautiful validation of Jung's foresight, confirms these observations about projection withdrawal. Jung later penned a timeless truth: the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But before he could fully embody this, he first had to navigate a world that desperately wanted him to think less, question less, and analyze less. The turning point arrived when Jung realized that his overthinking was, in actuality, his mind's desperate quest for meaning within a profession that felt increasingly meaningless. While other psychologists found contentment in surface-level explanations, Jung's unconscious was fiercely demanding a deeper, more authentic truth. He began to grasp that his relentless analysis wasn't a fundamental personality flaw. It was his very psyche's ingenious way of rejecting shallow answers and demanding a profound, authentic understanding. His overthinking was, in a revolutionary sense, underthinking that had been tragically mislabeled as a mental illness by a society that preferred convenient, simplistic explanations. Jung taught that the shadow, once brought into the light of consciousness, transforms from a source of unconscious manipulation into a wellspring of authentic power. It's like finding a hidden treasure chest, dark and dusty at first, but filled with immense value once opened. Your intense thinking might just be your unconscious mind's eloquent way of signaling that something is profoundly amiss with your external circumstances, not with the magnificent machinery of your mind itself. Stage 2. Withdrawal of projections. Consciously ceasing the unconscious placement of rejected qualities onto others, taking back what is truly yours. They pathologized his deep thinking, labeling it as diseased because it was far easier than confronting the uncomfortable truth that their own simplistic explanations were woefully inadequate. But Jung, with an unwavering spirit, refused to shut down his analytical mind. Instead, he courageously chose to study it. He began meticulously documenting his thoughts, deeply analyzing his dreams, and fearlessly exploring the hidden deeper layers of his own psyche. What he subsequently discovered didn't just revolutionize psychology, it illuminated a new pathway for all of us. Here's a powerful Jungian recognition exercise you can embrace today. Jung believed that the shadow is a tight passage, a narrow door whose painful constriction no one is spared who goes down to the deep well. Try this. Write down 3 qualities you strongly dislike in others. Then, with radical honesty, ask yourself, how might these qualities exist within me, perhaps in subtle, repressed, or unacknowledged forms? This simple act can illuminate your remaining projections, opening a doorway to deeper self-awareness. Jung's stark words echo here. The foundation of all mental illness is the unwillingness to experience legitimate suffering. Your legitimate suffering encompasses the deep grief of not being seen for who you truly are, the righteous rage at having your boundaries constantly violated, and the raw terror of discovering what remains when you finally cease being everyone's emotional caretaker. The persona, while offering a semblance of protection from these painful truths, simultaneously prevents you from accessing your authentic, unyielding power. This groundbreaking discovery led to Jung's first transformative technique for converting overthinking into profound insight: the practice of seeking meaning. Jung understood that most overthinking occurs when the mind struggles to find inherent purpose in what it is analyzing. Imagine your mind as a highly sophisticated instrument, like a finely tuned compass. If there's no true north, it will spin endlessly, creating chaos. But when you provide your analytical mind with a truly meaningful problem to solve, a worthy direction, it ceases its frantic spinning and begins to move with clarity, precision, and purpose. Jung made a startling discovery that completely reshaped our understanding of the human mind. People don't overthink when they are immersed in meaning. They overthink precisely when meaning is absent, when it is missing from their lives. During his own intense period of psychological analysis, Jung observed that his most agonizing thought spirals, his most torturous mental loops, occurred when he felt utterly disconnected from a sense of purpose. Persona motivation. I must succeed to prove I'm worthy. Authentic motivation. I'm drawn to this work because it resonates deeply with my intrinsic nature. Here's how Jung's meaning-seeking approach empowers you. Authentic motivation. I engage with this because the process itself is inherently fulfilling, a pure expression of my being. They can never be solved but only outgrown. You don't solve your empathic challenges. You cultivate a larger, more robust inner container that can gracefully hold both your exquisite sensitivity and your unwavering sovereignty. If you've ever started setting boundaries and been met with accusations of selfishness, know that choosing yourself for the first time is a revolutionary act of self-love. Your innate wisdom recognizes that empathic individuation demands what Jung called holding the tension of opposites. You must learn to embody both radical openness and firm boundaries, both boundless compassion and fierce self-protection, both profound sensitivity and unwavering strength. This journey isn't about becoming less empathic, it's about evolving into a conscious empath, rather than remaining an unconscious emotional sponge. Yet, your authentic desires, when they begin to stir, feel quiet, almost gentle, surprisingly subdued compared to the fierce intensity of your old drives. The capability furnace forced him to acquire skills he'd been too comfortable to develop: sales, digital marketing, direct client relationships. The character kiln exposed that he'd been performing the role of a successful executive rather than authentically being himself. The connection crucible showed him which relationships were true, unwavering anchors, and the Courage Foundry gave him the indomitable strength to launch his own consulting firm, founded on principles of business ethics. When someone in your presence activates, for instance, the victim archetype, your unconscious mind automatically responds by activating the savior archetype within you. You might genuinely believe you're being compassionate, but in reality, you are being possessed by an unconscious pattern. This archetypal possession clarifies why your empathic responses often feel compulsive rather than a conscious choice. You're not necessarily choosing to absorb someone's anxiety. You're unconsciously resonating with the collective anxiety that particular person happens to be carrying. Jung named this participation mystique, a psychological state where you temporarily lose individual consciousness and become absorbed into pervasive collective psychological patterns. But Sarah chose Forge training. The clarity crucible showed her she'd been accepting crumbs of affection, giving unconditional love, and sacrificing her own needs for fear of abandonment. she realized she had, in essence, abandoned herself. The capability furnace forced her to cultivate an independence she'd never known. She learned to manage finances, make crucial decisions alone, and rebuild social connections from scratch, forging a new, vibrant community. The character kiln revealed she'd been performing the perfect wife, neglecting her authentic self. The connection crucible taught her the profound difference between being loved for who she pretended to be versus who she actually was. And the courage foundry gave her the unwavering strength to demand relationships where she was truly valued, not merely accommodated. 18 months later, Sarah had rebuilt her life around authentic connections, meaningful work, and genuine self-respect. The betrayal didn't destroy her. It liberated her from a comfortable prison she'd been too afraid to escape. Mechanism 2. Strategic timing. Strength exploitation. Jung observed that narcissists possess an almost preternatural ability to time these crises with pinpoint accuracy. They seem to intuitively know precisely when your spirit is soaring, when you feel robust, when you are confidently advancing in your life. They will invariably make contact immediately after you've celebrated a significant positive change, achieved a personal milestone, or reached a new zenith of self-assurance. Jung realized this timing is far from accidental. It is psychologically strategic. Are you possessed by the mother archetype, compulsively nurturing everyone around you until you are utterly depleted? Are you channeling the wounded healer, staying stuck in your own pain in a subconscious effort to help others process theirs? If you've noticed that certain people consistently trigger the same deeply ingrained response in you, you're beginning to see the pattern now. The ultimate goal isn't to cease feeling archetypal energies. It's to develop conscious choice about when and how you engage with them. Jung referred to this as active imagination, the cultivated ability to dialogue with these powerful archetypal forces rather than being helplessly overwhelmed by them. Jung noted they frequently utter phrases like, "You're the only person I can truly trust with this. I have nowhere else to turn," or, "I know we've had our struggles, but you're the only one who truly knows me." This transcends mere manipulation. It is empathy hijacking. They are deploying your boundless compassion as a Trojan horse, a deceptive gift, to re-establish their psychological dominion. But here's where Jung's research veers into truly sinister territory. Manufactured vulnerability often involves the narcissist genuinely suffering. They aren't necessarily feigning their crisis. They are creating real problems that inflict real pain upon themselves, specifically to reel you back into their orbit. Jung realized that narcissists would rather endure genuine suffering than relinquish control entirely. They will sacrifice their own well-being to maintain psychological dominance over those they perceive as strong. Jung discovered that truly integrated empaths develop what he called the transcendent function, the magnificent capacity to hold seemingly opposing forces in creative tension. You can be both exquisitely vulnerable and fiercely protected, both open-hearted and firmly boundaried, both deeply caring and wisely detached. This isn't about becoming cold or disconnected. It's about being authentically present without ever losing your essential self. But when crisis inevitably comes, and it will come for everyone, you will be not just ready, but poised to transform it into your greatest victory, a testament to your unyielding spirit. Carl Jung unearthed a profound, often uncomfortable truth about empathy. Your most magnificent gift can, tragically, become your greatest vulnerability when wielded as a weapon by someone who intuitively understands the compassionate heart. In his deep dives into narcissistic manipulation, Jung was profoundly disturbed by a recurring observation. The kindest, most profoundly empathetic individuals were consistently the ones who remained entangled longest in toxic dynamics. It wasn't a deficit of strength. It was precisely because their inherent goodness was being cunningly turned against them. Jung wisely noted, "The creation of something new is not accomplished by the intellect, but by the play instinct acting from inner necessity." When you serve from your authentic self, rather than from empathic compulsion, your unique gifts become truly transformative, radiating profound impact. Integrated empaths cultivate what we call witnessing presence, the sublime ability to hold sacred space for others' experiences without absorbing them, to offer profound wisdom without attachment to outcomes, to love fiercely without losing themselves in the process. This is the fundamental difference between being an emotional sponge, perpetually saturated, and being a lighthouse, radiating unwavering light from a solid foundation. Jung understood that true empathic service absolutely requires self-possession. You simply cannot authentically give what you do not have, and you cannot hold sacred space for others if you are not firmly holding space for your own being. The integration process teaches you a vital, liberating truth. Self-care isn't selfish. It is the very bedrock of authentic empathy. The ultimate integration test is whether you can maintain your serene center even while others are engulfed in emotional chaos, whether you can offer genuine, heartfelt support without abandoning your own vital needs, whether you can be fully present without disappearing into others' experiences. If you've learned to feel others' pain without taking it on as your own, you now understand the power of I witness but don't absorb. Jung's individuation map becomes intensely practical through what we might call empathic alchemy, the conscious, deliberate transformation of your sensitivity from a debilitating burden into an extraordinary superpower. Jung's liberating insight: we don't really heal anything, we simply let it go. The first crucial practice is emotional sorting, learning to precisely identify which emotions genuinely belong to you and which you've unconsciously absorbed. Each morning, take a mindful scan of your emotional state and ask yourself, what am I truly feeling that is authentically mine? You will likely be astonished to discover how much of your daily emotional landscape belongs to other people. Jung taught that consciousness blossoms from observation. Create what we can call an empathy journal, where you meticulously track your emotional states throughout the day. Notice which individuals consistently drain your vital energy, which environments overwhelmingly tax your system, and which situations habitually trigger your empathic absorption. Advanced technique: write 2 versions of your crisis story. First, write the victim version, all the unfairness, all the losses, all the reasons you can't recover. Then, write the hero version, the challenges you're overcoming, the strength you're building, the person you are becoming. Notice which version makes you feel more capable of effective action and inspires you to move forward. The second vital practice involves boundary rituals, physical and energetic practices designed to help you maintain your precious emotional sovereignty. Jung understood that the body holds profound psychological patterns, thus requiring somatic practices to support your individuation journey. This might involve powerful visualization exercises, where you consciously imagine a shimmering protective boundary around yourself, or deliberate physical movements that help you discharge absorbed emotions. Cultivate what we call empathic transitions, conscious, intentional rituals between interactions that help you clear absorbed energy and lovingly reconnect with your authentic self. This could be as beautifully simple as washing your hands while imagining you are releasing others' emotions, or taking 3 deep, grounding breaths to anchor yourself back to your own sacred center. Execute relentlessly. Forge training only works if you take consistent, decisive action despite emotional turbulence. Your feelings will invariably lag behind your decisions. You must act your way into feeling better, not passively wait to feel better before acting. Start with the smallest possible step, then the next smallest. Build undeniable momentum through micro-victories. Your mind desperately needs evidence that you're not helpless, that you still possess agency, that you can influence your circumstances. Advanced technique: the one rule. The narcissist's unconscious mind generates these assurances not because they intend to honor them, but because they recognize hope as your profound psychological Achilles heel. In the realm of relationships, Forge training requires surgical precision. You're not aiming to become emotionally invulnerable or cold. You're learning to maintain your unwavering center while still being genuinely connected and tender. When someone you love betrays you, disappoints you, or abandons you, your natural instinct is often to either chase them desperately or wall yourself off completely. Both responses unwittingly surrender your emotional power to them. Instead, apply Forge training. Jung understood that the practical application of individuation principles must be gentle and gradual. You are meticulously rewiring decades of ingrained empathic programming, a process that absolutely requires immense patience and compassionate self-understanding. The goal is never perfection. It is conscious choice about how you profoundly engage your empathic gifts. Jung's shadow work also illuminates what we can call the dark empath. The unconscious ways your sensitivity, when unintegrated, can become destructive and even subtly harmful. Jung's potent words challenge us. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, in order to avoid facing their own soul. Here lies a potent shadow truth many empaths instinctively refuse to acknowledge. Your emotional absorption can, in its unintegrated state, become a subtle form of psychological vampirism. When you are constantly processing other people's emotional states, you are unconsciously feeding off their psychological energy. You can become subtly addicted to emotional drama because it provides you with a distorted sense of purpose and aliveness. It is, in fact, the ultimate act of love, both for yourself and, paradoxically, for the narcissist, because it courageously refuses to enable their self-destructive patterns while fiercely safeguarding your authentic self. You might even begin to unconsciously create or attract emotional crises because, without them, you feel a profound emptiness and directionlessness. Your identity becomes so profoundly dependent on being needed that you inadvertently sabotage your own happiness to maintain your cherished role as the wounded healer. The dark empath also, tragically, uses sensitivity as a weapon. You can manipulate through overwhelming emotional displays, control through a pervasive victim consciousness, and punish through the calculated withdrawal of your healing presence. Jung called this psychological poisoning, where your unintegrated shadow contaminates and distorts your innate empathic gifts. You might unconsciously exaggerate your emotional reactions to gain attention, dramatize your sensitivity to avoid responsibility, or even subtly use your empathic insights to manipulate others' behavior. The shadow empath can become what Jung called a false prophet, someone who outwardly claims to facilitate healing while actually perpetuating deeper dysfunction. But the darkest, most challenging aspect of unintegrated empathy is projection. You unconsciously cast your disowned selfishness, your own hidden needs, onto others, perceiving them as narcissistic while remaining tragically blind to your own narcissistic need to be the special, chosen healer. You become obsessively focused on identifying toxic people, all the while remaining oblivious to your own toxic patterns. Jung taught that shadow projection invariably involves what he called the inferior function, the psychological capacities you have least developed and therefore disowned. For many empaths, this often includes healthy aggression, appropriate selfishness, and the vital ability to maintain boundaries without succumbing to guilt. You project these disowned qualities onto others, and then, in a distorted attempt, try to heal or fix them, which is actually an unconscious, circuitous attempt to integrate your own shadow. The true healing begins when you courageously acknowledge that your empathic gifts, when unconscious, can be destructive. Jung wrote, "The most intense conflicts, if overcome, leave behind a sense of security and calm that is not easily disturbed." Integration means bravely owning your capacity for psychological manipulation, your subtle addiction to emotional drama, and your unconscious superiority complex. This is not about shame. It is about becoming profoundly conscious of patterns that operate automatically when you are not aware of them. Jung discovered that the shadow, once integrated, transmutes into a potent source of authentic power. 3. Will my assistance genuinely foster their growth and self-reliance, or will it unwittingly enable their dysfunction and perpetuate their destructive patterns? Jung's most profound insight concerning empathic individuation involves what we can call the empathic mirror, the powerful recognition that every person you are instinctively trying to heal is, in fact, reflecting an aspect of your own psyche back to you. Jung's timeless advice rings true. Everyone you meet knows something you don't know but need to know. You'll begin to perceive people in crisis differently. Instead of seeing victims, you will see potential phoenixes. Instead of offering pity, you will offer perspective, a map out of the darkness. Instead of trying to rescue them from their forge, you will compassionately help them learn to use it. This awareness can be both profoundly beautiful and, at times, incredibly lonely. Beautiful, because you gain the genuine capacity to help people transmute their suffering into strength. Lonely, because you realize how few truly understand that crisis is a curriculum, not merely a catastrophe. There are 3 distinct levels of mastery in Forge training, and understanding where you stand will empower you to progress toward true anti-fragile resilience. You unconsciously need others to carry your disowned psychological content, and they, in turn, need you to absorb their emotional overflow. But here is Jung's truly revolutionary insight. Once you consciously recognize this powerful mirror effect, every single relationship transforms into an extraordinary opportunity for profound individuation. Instead of frantically trying to fix others, you can pause and courageously ask, what aspect of myself is this person reflecting back to me? What disowned quality are they carrying for me? What unlived potential are they showing me? This radical shift transforms empathy from unconscious absorption into conscious reflection. Level 2. Proactive forging. At this level, you deliberately seek out challenges to build strength before crisis finds you. This is where you begin to treat your mind with the same intentionality an athlete treats their body, with structured, intentional training regimens designed to dramatically increase capacity. You actively take on projects that stretch you beyond your comfort zone. You initiate difficult conversations you've been skillfully avoiding. The individual whose unbridled anger frightens you might be carrying the very rage you've been too afraid to express. True integration begins when you cease trying to change others and bravely start asking what they are profoundly teaching you about yourself. This doesn't mean becoming self-absorbed or losing your empathy. It means consciously using your empathic sensitivity as a powerful tool for self-discovery rather than an excuse for self-abandonment. Level 3. Integrated forging. At this highest level, forge training becomes so natural, so deeply ingrained, that you no longer even consciously think about it. You have internalized the profound truth that all experience, both pleasant and painful, contributes inexorably to your strength, your wisdom, and your boundless capacity. You respond to both overwhelming success and devastating failure with equal composure, a tranquil presence. At this level, people begin to describe you as unshakable or centered, without being able to articulate precisely why. Jung's 4th protection, the sovereignty declaration. Jung's ultimate protective technique culminates in what he called psychological sovereignty, the conscious, unwavering declaration that you are not, and never will be, responsible for other adults' choices, feelings, or life outcomes. Jung observed that those who fall prey to manufactured vulnerability often harbor unconscious beliefs that they are somehow accountable for others' happiness or well-being. The sovereignty declaration is a conscious, empowering rejection of these debilitating beliefs. It sounds like this. Jung's empowering words resonate deeply. The difference between a good life and a bad life is how well you walk through the fire. The conscious empath no longer loses themselves in the tumultuous emotional states of others. You cultivate what Jung called psychological sovereignty, the profound ability to feel deeply without being overwhelmed, to care authentically without being consumed, to help powerfully without being depleted. This transformation isn't about becoming less sensitive, it's about becoming consciously sensitive. Conscious empaths embody what Jung called the transcendent function, the magnificent capacity to hold seemingly opposing forces in creative, dynamic tension. You can be both exquisitely vulnerable and firmly boundaried, both open-hearted and fiercely self-protective, both deeply compassionate and wisely discerning. You no longer perceive these as contradictions, but as complementary, harmonious aspects of truly integrated empathy. This hard-won knowledge can make you impatiently frustrated with people who haven't yet learned that security is often an illusion, and that real, enduring safety comes from radical adaptability, not from frantically avoiding change. Use this profound awareness compassionately. Remember that you were not born with forged training. You developed it through necessity, through struggle, and through consistent practice. Others simply haven't had your experiences or your training yet. And where the will to power is paramount, love is lacking. Your service becomes an authentic expression of your true self, rather than a desperate, exhausting attempt to earn love or purpose through fixing others. You develop what Jung called witnessing consciousness, the profound ability to hold sacred space for others' experiences without taking them on as your own. You can feel someone's pain without making it your personal responsibility, offer unwavering support without attachment to specific outcomes, and love deeply without losing yourself in the other person's psychological material. This elevated consciousness transforms your relationships from codependent fusion into what Jung called conscious partnership. You naturally attract people who do not need you to carry their emotional burdens, and you no longer need others to validate your worth through their healing process. The ultimate mastery isn't about never feeling pain. It's about feeling pain fully, allowing it to move through you, while simultaneously maintaining your unwavering capacity for effective action and genuine, expansive love. Jung understood that conscious empaths naturally become inspiring leaders, not through dominance or control, but through the sheer power of their integration. Your authentic presence gives others silent permission to be authentic themselves. Your clear boundaries teach others invaluable lessons about healthy relationships. Your unwavering self-care models how to honor sensitivity without falling into martyrdom. The ultimate goal of Jung's empathic individuation isn't to cease being sensitive, it's to become what we call consciously empathic, a master of your extraordinary gifts. Jung's empowering declaration resonates: I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become. True integration unfolds through what Jung called the transcendent function, those transformative moments when opposing forces within your psyche resolve into a higher, more harmonious synthesis. For empaths, this means bravely integrating your innate need to help others with your vital need to honor yourself, your boundless capacity for deep feeling with your non-negotiable requirement for emotional boundaries. But here's what Sforza understood, and what most people miss. Forged training isn't about becoming emotionally numb or impossibly tough. It's about learning that your mind's inherent capacity for strength, for radical adaptation, and for profound renewal is far, far greater than you have ever been taught to believe. Your worst moments are not punishments. They are sacred invitations. Invitations to discover capabilities you didn't know you had. Invitations to shed limitations you thought were permanent. Instead of being overwhelmed by others' feelings, you learn to calmly witness them, understand their deeper message, and respond from your authentic center rather than reactive empathy. This profound transformation demands what Jung called psychological death and rebirth. Your old identity as the wounded healer, the emotional sponge, the perpetual caretaker. It must courageously die for your authentic, radiant, empathic self to gloriously emerge. Then, with these as your compass, evaluate every major relationship and commitment in your life. Jung found that those who live in alignment with their authentic values become incredibly difficult to manipulate, for they possess an internal compass, a guiding star that cannot be swayed by external influence. The transformation is complete when your empathy becomes a conscious, deliberate choice, rather than an unconscious, draining compulsion. You can feel others' emotions without taking them on as your own, offer genuine support without abandoning your sacred self, and set clear boundaries without guilt or dramatic repercussions. Jung taught that individuated empaths become what he called wounded healers who have been healed, wise souls who can powerfully guide others through emotional difficulties because they have successfully navigated their own intricate, empathic challenges. Your exquisite sensitivity, once a burden, now transforms into a magnificent gift you offer the world from a place of profound wholeness, rather than a heavy load you carry for others. If you are ready to transform your sensitivity into an unparalleled superpower, choose conscious empathy now.